Welcome to the deep dive. We've got some fascinating stuff to get into today about the Buddhist afterlife. And let me tell you, it's not all just like incense and meditation retreats. We're going to be going deep into hellfire, paradise, and everything in between.
It's amazing how these Buddhist texts don't just describe the afterlife as some abstract idea, you know? They really connect it to like our everyday experiences.
Yeah, that's so true. Okay, so let's unpack this. These excerpts that we got from you listeners are from a video all about the Japanese Buddhist text, Essentials of Salvation. And it really dives into this idea of 6 realms of existence.
6 realms.
Yeah. Heaven, human, Asura, animal, hungry ghost, and of course, hell.
Right. And the Essentials of Salvation basically acts as a guide to help us understand these realms. It explains like what we can do in this life to reach enlightenment and paradise.
Which Buddhists refer to as the Pure Land.
Exactly, the Pure Land.
Okay, so paradise. But before we reach those pearly gates, we've got to talk about, the burning flames. The text gets very vivid when it describes the 8 levels of Buddhist hell.
Oh, yeah. It's important to note, though, that these Buddhist hells, they aren't simply about eternal punishment. They're more about purification and working through, the negative karma we accumulate.
It's less like a cosmic prison sentence.
Yeah.
And more like a spiritual boot camp.
Exactly, yeah. Each level of hell is like a direct consequence of your negative actions. And the suffering experience there is meant to like purify and lead to eventual progress.
Okay, I see. But the text doesn't shy away from some pretty intense descriptions. I mean, we're talking iron claws, burning ropes, trees made of needles. What's the significance of all this, vivid imagery?
Yeah, well, they might seem shocking at first, but they're meant to make us truly confront the consequences of our actions.
Where?
So it's like a really powerful wake-up call to live more ethically,
Right. So it's not just about scaring us,
Yeah.
but more like giving us that motivation to, start making better choices.
Exactly. The text argues that understanding these realms is key to understanding how our choices impact not only our current lives, but also, our future path.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the first hell, for those who have, committed particularly bad deeds, is said to involve being constantly resurrected only to be torn apart by iron claws. That sounds pretty rough.
Yeah, and this first hell is specifically reserved for those who have killed, especially without remorse. The suffering there is meant to reflect the violence they inflicted on others.
Oh, okay. And as you descend through the hells, the suffering just intensifies, right? The text describes being bound with burning ropes, having your flesh torn by axes, even being pierced by trees of needles.
Yeah, the descriptions are definitely meant to be unsettling. They highlight the increasing severity of the consequences as you accumulate negative karma. But it's important to remember that even within this framework of suffering, there's always the possibility of progress.
Okay, so even in these hellish realms, it's not a completely hopeless situation.
Not at all. The Essentials of Salvation emphasizes that even those who find themselves in these lower realms can find a way out through sincere repentance and, a change of heart.
Wow, so there's hope. So it's not just about, punishment, but also about the potential for redemption.
That's exactly right. The text stresses that genuine remorse can actually lighten your karmic burden and eventually lead to a more positive destination.
So you're not just, stuck there forever.
No, and it underscores this really important idea that positive change is possible even in the face of unimaginable suffering.
That's powerful, and that seems to tie back into the Buddhist emphasis on compassion, right?
Absolutely. Compassion for yourself and others is really seen as the key to breaking free from this cycle of suffering and achieving true liberation.
Okay, so that makes sense. Now, here's where I think things get really interesting. The text also says that we're experiencing glimpses of all 6 realms, heaven, hell, all of them, right now in our everyday lives.
It's a fascinating concept, isn't it? The text argues that these realms aren't separate, distant places. They're actually reflected in our thoughts, emotions, and experiences right here, right now.
Right. So when you feel those moments of pure joy or, connection and love, those are reflections of paradise.
Yes, exactly. Think about the joy you feel when you're surrounded by loved ones, or that sense of peace that comes from helping others, or even the deep satisfaction of a job well done. These are all glimpses of the heavenly realms, reminding us of the positive potential within us.
And on the flip side, moments of intense anger or hatred or despair, those are like echoes of hell.
They can be seen that way, yes.
Yeah.
Experiencing violence, witnessing cruelty, or even, just feeling consumed by jealousy or greed. These can all be seen as glimpses into the lower realms. The text urges us to pay attention to these experiences and not just, dismiss them as fleeting emotions.
Right, because they're showing us something important about ourselves.
That's
It's like our lives are this constant interplay of all these different energies. And by recognizing them, we can start to understand, our own karmic balance.
Precisely. The text suggests that by paying attention to these glimpses, we can become more aware of the choices that we're making and, their ultimate consequences.
Okay, this is pretty mind-blowing. It's like reframing how I think about my daily life and my choices. But before we get too deep into the philosophical implications of all this, I kind of want to hear more about this Pure Land. What is it like to actually be in this realm? What makes it so different from the human realm we experience now?
So the Pure Land, or paradise, is described as a realm of just unimaginable bliss and radiant light, free from all forms of suffering.
Okay, sign me up.
It's a place where beings exist in perfect harmony, surrounded by beauty, and they're dedicated to, spiritual growth.
Okay, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
But the Pure Land's not like a uniform experience, right? It's divided into different levels, each reflecting a different degree of spiritual attainment.
That's right. The Essentials of Salvation actually describes 9 levels within the Pure Land, each with its own unique characteristics and qualities. The level a being enters is determined by the merit they've accumulated through their actions and spiritual practice in previous lives.
So it's not just about getting into the Pure Land. It's about what level you reach within that realm.
Yes, exactly. It's like a spectrum of enlightenment. But even those who enter at a lower level, they still have the opportunity to progress and ascend to higher realms through continued spiritual practice.
Oh, so even in paradise, the journey of growth and development continues.
Absolutely. The Pure Land is not a place of stagnation, but a dynamic realm where beings can continue to cultivate their wisdom and compassion.
Okay, so this brings up an interesting question. If the Pure Land is a realm of, such bliss and ease, why would anyone want to leave?
That's a great question, and one that the text actually addresses. You see, the ultimate goal of Buddhism is not just to reach, a blissful state. It's to achieve complete enlightenment, a state of perfect wisdom and compassion that transcends all limitations.
Wow, so even in paradise, there's still that drive towards something even greater, that desire to transcend even the blissful state of the Pure Land.
That's exactly it. True enlightenment involves recognizing the interconnectedness of all things and devoting yourself to the liberation of all beings from suffering.
So while the Pure Land is a place of great beauty and joy, it's not like the final destination. It's a stepping stone on the path to complete enlightenment.
That's a great way to put it. The Pure Land serves as a supportive environment for continued spiritual growth, eventually leading to a level of awareness that allows beings to, return to the cycle of birth and death, not out of necessity, but out of compassion to help others achieve liberation.
That is such a beautiful and selfless concept. It really speaks to the heart of Buddhist teachings, compassion, wisdom, and selflessness.
And it highlights this really important idea that the Buddhist path is not just about your personal salvation, but about working towards the well-being of all beings.
This has been an incredible exploration so far. We've gone from, the depths of these burning hells to exploring this concept of repentance, and then even getting a glimpse of the beauty and wonder of the Pure Land. It's been quite a journey. What other insights does the Essentials of Salvation offer about the nature of, this afterlife journey?
Well, one thing the text really emphasizes is that the journey to the Pure Land, it's not a passive one. It requires active effort, dedication, and a sincere desire to cultivate these positive qualities.
Well, it's not just about hoping for a good afterlife, right? It's about making those conscious choices that align with, our deepest values and aspirations.
Exactly. The text actually provides some pretty detailed instructions on how to cultivate the qualities that lead to a positive rebirth. It emphasizes the importance of, living ethically, practicing compassion, and developing a deep understanding of Buddhist teachings.
Wow, it sounds like the Essentials of Salvation is not just a guide to the afterlife, but also a manual for living a more meaningful and fulfilling life right now.
That's a great observation. The practices that are said to lead to a favorable rebirth are also the practices that can bring greater peace, joy, and meaning to our present lives.
This whole conversation has been incredibly thought-provoking. It's definitely made me think about my own life and choices in a new light.
I think that's the power of these ancient teachings, you know.
Right.
They offer us this really profound perspective on life and death and encourage us to live in a way that benefits not only ourselves, but all beings.
Right, yeah. Before we move on, though, can we talk a bit more about how the text encourages us to see these different realms reflected in our daily lives? I think that's such a powerful concept.
Absolutely. The essentials of salvation really drives home this point, that the six realms aren't just distant places. They're states of mind that we experience constantly.
Right, right. So like those moments of pure joy and connection we talked about earlier, those are actually glimpses of the heavenly realms, while moments of anger, hatred, or greed, those are echoes of the lower realms.
Exactly. The text urges us to really pay attention to these experiences, to see them as more than just fleeting emotions. They're opportunities to understand the karmic forces at play in our lives.
So by recognizing these glimpses,
Mm.
we can become more aware of the choices we're making and how they contribute to, our overall karmic balance.
Precisely. It's about developing a deeper level of self-awareness
Right.
and recognizing the interconnectedness of all things.
Okay, this is all so fascinating, but I feel like we've barely even scratched the surface.
Hmm.
What else can you tell us about how to practically apply these teachings to our lives?
Well, the text offers some really specific guidance on how to cultivate a more positive path. It emphasizes practices like generosity, patience, and ethical conduct, all of which contribute to a more harmonious and fulfilling life.
Okay, so it's not just about, meditating and chanting. It's about actively cultivating positive qualities in our daily interactions and choices.
Exactly. It's about integrating these teachings into every aspect of your life.
This is all incredibly inspiring, but I think we need to take a quick pause here. When we come back, we'll delve even deeper into these practical aspects
Hmm.
and explore how we can apply the wisdom of the essentials of salvation to create a more positive and meaningful life, both for ourselves and for others. Stay with us. Welcome back to our exploration of the Buddhist afterlife. It's pretty wild how these concepts, while dealing with life and death, can actually give us a framework for how to live more mindfully right now.
I completely agree. The essentials of salvation makes a really profound connection between our present actions and the afterlife.
Before the break, we were starting to talk about those specific practices for cultivating positive karma and getting closer to the Pure Land. Could you tell us more about those?
Yeah, sure. The text emphasizes a few key practices. One of those is meditation, which can help calm the mind and cultivate greater awareness. And it also helps you develop compassion.
So meditation isn't just about relaxation. It's like actively training your mind and building those positive qualities.
That's exactly it. Meditation is seen as this powerful tool for transforming your mind. It can help you break free from those, negative patterns of thinking and behavior.
Oh, I see. The text also mentions chanting, especially the mantra Namu Amida Butsu. Can you explain what that means and how it relates to reaching the Pure Land?
Right, so chanting this mantra is a central practice in Pure Land Buddhism. And it's not just about repeating words, you know? It's about invoking the compassion and wisdom of Amitabha Buddha. Amitabha Buddha is the Buddha of infinite light, who presides over the Pure Land.
Okay, so by chanting this mantra, are we basically calling on a higher power for guidance and support?
Yeah, you could put it that way. It's about cultivating this really deep trust in Amitabha Buddha's vow to guide all beings to enlightenment. The repetition of the mantra is believed to, purify your mind and create a connection with this compassionate energy.
I can see how that would work. It seems like all these practices we've talked about, meditation, chanting, taking refuge in the Buddha, they all work together.
Oh, absolutely. They all support each other. They help us build those qualities that lead to a more positive rebirth and eventually liberation from suffering.
You mentioned earlier that even those in the lower realms, like hell, have a chance to escape through repentance. Can you tell us a little more about this concept of repentance and how it fits into Buddhism?
Repentance is really important in Buddhist thought, but it's not about self-punishment or guilt. It's more about recognizing your harmful actions and feeling genuine remorse, and then, making a sincere commitment to change.
So acknowledging your mistakes, taking responsibility for your actions, and really trying to be better.
Exactly. The essentials of salvation makes it very clear that even those who've committed serious transgressions can transform their karma through sincere repentance.
That's a really hopeful message. It's like saying we're not defined by our past mistakes. We have the power to change our course. through conscious effort and self-reflection.
Right. The text really highlights that idea that positive change is always possible, even when you've done things that are negative in the past.
Okay, I want to shift gears a bit and talk more about the Pure Land itself.
Mm.
What's it like to actually be in this realm? What makes it so different from our human experience right now?
Well, the Pure Land is described as this realm of pure bliss and radiant light, totally free from suffering. It's where beings exist in perfect harmony, surrounded by beauty, and dedicated to spiritual growth.
That sounds incredible. But the Pure Land isn't just one big experience, right? It's divided into different levels, each reflecting a different level of spiritual attainment.
You got it. The Essentials of Salvation actually describes 9 levels within the Pure Land. Each one has its own special characteristics and qualities.
So how do you know which level you end up in?
The level you enter is determined by the merit you've earned through your actions and spiritual practice, in your previous lives.
So it's not just about getting into the Pure Land. It's also about what level you reach within that realm.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like a spectrum of enlightenment. But even if you enter at a lower level, you still have the chance to progress. You can ascend to those higher realms by continuing your spiritual practice.
So even in paradise, the journey of growth continues.
Absolutely. The Pure Land isn't a place to just sit around. It's a dynamic realm. Beings there continue to cultivate their wisdom and compassion.
This actually brings up another question. If the Pure Land is all about bliss and ease, why would anyone ever want to leave?
That's a great question, and it's one that the text actually addresses. The ultimate goal of Buddhism isn't just to reach a blissful state. It's to achieve complete enlightenment. That's a state of perfect wisdom and compassion that goes beyond any limits.
Wow, so even in paradise, there's a drive towards something even greater, like a desire to go beyond even the blissful state of the Pure Land.
Exactly. True enlightenment means recognizing how everything is connected and devoting yourself to freeing all beings from suffering.
So while the Pure Land is a place of beauty and joy, it's not the final stop. It's more like a step on the path to complete enlightenment.
That's a great way to think about it. The Pure Land is like this supportive environment for continued spiritual growth. Eventually, it leads to a level of awareness that lets you return to the cycle of birth and death, not because you have to, but because you choose to, out of compassion. It's about helping others reach liberation.
That is such a beautiful and selfless concept. It really gets to the core of what Buddhism is about: compassion, wisdom, and selflessness.
Right, and it shows us that the Buddhist path isn't just about saving yourself, it's about working toward the well-being of everyone.
This whole conversation has been incredible so far. We've gone deep into the hells, talked about repentance, and even gotten a peek at the wonder of the Pure Land. What other insights can we find in the Essentials of Salvation about this whole afterlife journey?
Well, one thing it really stresses is that reaching the Pure Land isn't passive. You have to put in the work. It takes active effort, dedication, and a real desire to develop those positive qualities.
So it's not about just hoping you end up in a good place after you die. It's about making choices right now that line up with your deepest values and what you want to achieve.
Exactly. The text actually lays out some pretty detailed instructions on how to develop the qualities that lead to a positive rebirth. It really focuses on the importance of ethical living, practicing compassion, and understanding the teachings of Buddhism deeply.
It sounds like the Essentials of Salvation isn't just a guidebook for the afterlife, but also for living a more meaningful life right now.
That's a great point. The things that lead to a better rebirth are the same things that bring more peace, joy, and meaning to our lives right now.
This whole deep dive has really shifted my perspective on my own life and the choices I make. Knowing that my actions have an impact beyond this life is seriously motivating. It makes me want to be more mindful and intentional in everything I do.
That's the power of these ancient teachings. They give us this incredible way to understand how life and death are connected. And they encourage us to live in a way that helps not only ourselves, but everyone else.
Absolutely. Before we move on, though, can we talk more about how the text encourages us to see these different realms reflected in our daily lives? I just think that's such a cool concept.
Definitely. The Essentials of Salvation really wants us to understand that the 6 realms aren't just faraway places. They're states of mind that we experience all the time.
So, like those moments of pure joy and connection we talked about before are glimpses of the heavenly realms, while those times when we feel anger, hatred, or greed are echoes of the lower realms.
You got it. The text is telling us to pay attention to these experiences, to see them as more than just fleeting emotions. They give us a chance to understand the karmic forces that are at play in our lives.
So by noticing these glimpses, we can become more aware of what we're choosing and how those choices affect our overall karmic balance.
Exactly. It's about developing a deeper understanding of ourselves and how everything is connected.
This is all so fascinating, but I feel like we've only just scratched the surface. Can you tell us more about how to actually apply these teachings in our lives?
Sure, the text offers some very specific advice on how to build a more positive path. It really emphasizes practices like generosity, patience, and ethical conduct. And all of these things contribute to a more harmonious and fulfilling life.
So it's not just about meditating and chanting, right? It's about actively developing good qualities in our everyday interactions and choices.
That's it. It's about integrating these teachings into everything you do.
This has been so inspiring, but I think we need to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll go even deeper into these practical aspects and see how we can use the wisdom of the essentials of salvation to create a better life, not just for ourselves, but for others too. Stick with us. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It's amazing how this whole discussion about the Buddhist afterlife has really highlighted how the choices we make today actually shape our future, in a very real way.
The Essentials of Salvation definitely emphasizes that, like, our actions have consequences that go way beyond just our current lives.
Yeah, for sure. Before the break, we were talking about those specific practices that the text outlines for creating a more positive path. Can you tell us more about those?
Well, the text emphasizes that reaching a positive destination like the Pure Land, it's not just about luck or chance or anything. It's about actively cultivating positive qualities within ourselves. And one of the big ones they talk about is generosity.
Okay, generosity, got it.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing they're not just talking about money here, right?
No, you're absolutely right. Generosity in this context, it's a much broader concept. It's more about giving freely of our time, our resources, even our knowledge, without any expectation of getting something back in return.
Right, so it's more about developing that abundance mindset, like recognizing that when we give to others, we're actually enriching our own lives too.
Exactly. It's about realizing that we're all connected and that helping others ultimately benefits everyone, ourselves included.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, the text also talks about patience as being an essential quality on this path. Why is patience so important in Buddhism?
Patience is crucial because, well, the path to enlightenment is not like some quick fix.
Yeah.
It's a journey that requires a lot of dedication, perseverance, and that ability to handle those inevitable challenges with, like, grace and a good attitude.
So patience is kind of like what helps us get through those tough times on the path, right?
Yeah.
It helps us keep moving forward even when things get rough.
Exactly. Patience is what allows us to stay committed to our practice, even if we don't see those results right away. It helps us approach those challenges as opportunities for growth instead of just roadblocks.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it sounds like cultivating patience is an ongoing thing, something we can practice in our daily lives, not just on the meditation cushion.
Oh, absolutely. There are little ways we can practice patience every day, Everything from waiting in line at the store to dealing with difficult situations at work can be a chance to practice.
Those are great examples. It seems like developing all these qualities, generosity, patience, compassion, they're not just about getting to some far-off afterlife. They're about living a more meaningful life right now.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. These practices, they're both the means and the end. They're the path to a better afterlife, but they also bring more peace, joy, and meaning to our lives in the present moment.
This whole conversation has been eye-opening for sure. It's made me really think about my own choices in a new way. Knowing that my actions have consequences that go beyond this life, that's pretty motivating.
I think that's the real power of these Buddhist teachings. They offer us this incredibly profound perspective on life and death, urging us to live in a way that creates benefit for not just ourselves, but for all beings.
It's been a truly amazing deep dive into the Buddhist afterlife. Thanks to all our listeners for sending in those great excerpts, and a big thank you to you for helping us unpack all this wisdom.
It's been my pleasure.
I think the biggest takeaway here is that the Buddhist afterlife, it's not some distant destination. It's something we're creating every single day with the choices we make. And by embracing practices like generosity, patience, and compassion, we can create a brighter future for ourselves and for everyone else.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us on this journey. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.